TSM manager Parth breaks down Rift rivals, sharing junglers, and how the summer split has gone so far. One of the big roster changes for TSM this split has been the shared jungle role. Parth explains what the team has learned since implementing it and how this approach has evolved over the summer split.
My name is Parth Naidu. I'm the general manager of TSM. Obviously, initially when we started off the year, Acadian was supposed to be our academy jungler and Greg was supposed to be our LCS jungler, but Greg had a lot of risk problems at the beginning of the split. And so we decided to play Acadian until those were resolved. We tried to reintroduce Greg in the middle of the split when his wrist problems were better. But at that point, he hadn't played too much. It took too much time to reintroduce him into our team. And so we just decided that it would be better if Greg played the rest of this season in Academy and we would finish out the spring season with Acadian. Greg obviously did really well in his Academy season. They ended up winning the spring split and we made it to the finals with Acadian for LCS. Going into the summer, obviously we saw a lot of strengths that Greg had that he could bring to the team compared to Acadian, but obviously Acadian still had his own strengths. Acadian, he's a very communicative player. He synergizes well with a lot of lanes. He can give up what he needs to do to help the other players in his team excel and do really well. Greg is more of a cerebral player. He has a deep understanding of how to play the jungle role, and he knows how to create a lead and sort of extend that lead. And so we kind of had a position with players with two distinct strengths. This is the first time in TSM's history that we were legitimately in a position where we had two players for a spot that we thought that each could fill, that brought their individual strengths, and we wanted to try either a six-man roster or at least determine who is better for our squad moving forward. And so I talked to Tony, our head coach. He kind of agreed that we should treat this split as obviously something that we want to do in order to still remain competitive and make sure that we have the best roster, but also a learning experience for the organization, just to see with just short season if we can implement two junglers. After that kind of background, what we decided to do is obviously we split time with Greg and Acadian in the beginning of the split. They found that while we kind of put results on the board, like we were still second or third for the most of it, each jungler, the things that they needed to improve on wasn't happening as much because they were splitting time. And so then for the next few weeks, we decided to give each of them an entire week to see like what that progression was with the team. And I think we're kind of closing in and narrowing in on what we want to do. So I don't know if we've made the final decision on how we want to proceed moving forward, but we're definitely really close.
With Rift rivals out of the way, TSM had a chance to assess where they stand compared to other regions. Better international performance was one of TSM's aims for 2019. Here's how Parth felt they measured up.
Obviously, it was really disappointing from our end to not perform as well as the other teams, but at least internally, from the staff expectations, we knew that European teams this split after franchising had very strong lineups and they played a much faster style than we did here in North America. And so both stylistically and the way the current meta is kind of suited them a lot more. On top of that, we also took this time to, I won't say experiment because it kind of demeans the event, but we did take our time to try a lot of new ways to play the game when we practiced against them and play them on stage. And obviously we have a lot less experience in playing that style, so it didn't work out as well. But this was a good learning opportunity and a good stepping stone for when we do move into playoffs and international tournament later this year.
Team changes, such as the split jungle role, can often negatively affect win rates before they get better. Parth tells us how TSM balances the potential for long-term gain against the temptation to return to what they already know works.
At the beginning of every split, I sit down with Tony, our head coach, and we kind of outline what our season is going to be like and what are the minimum requirements of what we want to achieve as an organization. And that's been kind of the way we've done it for the last few years. This year, for example, we definitely saw that we were capable of making it to the finals last split against Team Liquid, and we were on the brink of winning. And so we want to continue to at least hit that level. But if we feel comfortable in being able to do that, then we are obviously going to experiment and make sure that we can do everything possible to make sure our squad is stronger if we do make it to the next portion. So I know that win rates can sometimes be affected. Both fans and people in the scene kind of get concerned that we're not doing as well. But I think internally, the metrics that we have, as long as we are on par to meeting what we want to do, it doesn't concern us internally too much. Because, I mean, right now you can see that while we're still struggling to try to find our identity, figure out the jungle situation, and a few other things that we're still working on, I believe we're second or third, somewhere along there. And so as long as we make playoffs in like a pretty decent position, we're pretty poised and we feel confident that even though we are trying things, it'll make us stronger for the long term.
Next, Parth talks player evolution and what TSM can learn from the players who've left to join other organizations.
Obviously, every organization works with their players differently. And so it has been interesting to see how TL chose to work with Doublelift or C9 chose to work with Svenskeren and so on. And I do think that there are some takeaways from what they do that we've definitely brought in, because every GM, their role is to watch their organizations, see how they work with their players and staff, and see anything that you can glean from it. Even though CLG isn't doing the best right now, I can definitely see some aspects of Biofrost's play and leadership that's gotten better by his position on the team. Same with Svenskeren. I know that for us in 2016, 2017, we had a very, I wouldn't say strict environment, but it was definitely a lot more conservative. Whereas C9 is a much more liberal org in terms of the freedoms they allow the players, and Svenskeren sort of flourished in that environment. So there are definitely key takeaways in terms of environment, leadership opportunities, and just team dynamic things that we can learn from their progression on other teams and make sure that we can bring them back to our org for our future rosters.
And finally, Parth tells us about his best moments of the summer split.
The first was, I think North America as a region is one of the few ones that are still running Zilean and Zilean Hecarim, so that's a strategy that we pulled out a few times in the beginning of the split. Both our junglers were on board, and Bjergsen, while he is an amazing carry player, also feels that like he can enable his team to do a lot more. And so both times we broke that out. It's a more fun and exciting game. It kind of pushes the boundaries of how we want to play the game to more of an aggressive style. And so that was one of the more fun games to watch. The other one was when we were down early game against a team where Bjergsen was Nazir. And time after time, he came up with plays where he put himself in a position to carry, and just shows how like instrumental he is to our team and our organization. Because not only is he someone who enables the players around him, but he can also make sure that he's the catalyst for a lot of those things in game. So hopefully we can definitely build on both of those things moving forward and do well for the rest of the year.
So that's an inside look at TSM, direct from Parth himself. Drop us a like if you enjoyed this video, and don't forget to subscribe to Logitech G for more esports features just like this one. If you do already subscribe, hit that notification bell so that you know exactly when our next video lands.